Technology Indore. Prior to that, he worked as a postdoctoral fellow at NTU Singapore. He received PhD degree from JNU New Delhi. His research interests include support vector machine optimization, machine learning, deep learning, and its applications to Alzheimer's disease and dementias. He has published over 165 referred journal papers of international repute. His publications have over 9,000 citations with an H index of 48. Recently, he has been listed in the world's top 2 scientists in the study carried out by Stanford University, USA. He has served on review boards for more than 100 scientific journals and served for scientific committees of various national and international conferences. He is a recipient of 2024 INNS Aharon Kajir Young Investigator Award, 2023 IIT Indore Excellence Research Award, 2022 Asia Pacific Neural Network Society Young Researcher Award, 29th ICONIP 2022 Best Research Paper Award, 2017 SOR ACRV Early Career Research Award, and the only recipient of 2016 DST Ramanujan Fellowship in the Mathematical Science. He is the Associate Editor of IEEE Transactions on Fuzzy Systems, IEEE Transactions on Emerging Topics in Computational Intelligence, IEEE Transactions on Neural Network and Learning Systems, and many other top journals such as Pattern Recognition, Neural Network, and Applied Subcomputing. He has also played a guest editor role for many special issues in IEEE Transactions on Fuzzy Systems, ACM Transactions on Multimedia, and several other journals like IEEE Journal of Biomedical Health Informatics, IEEE Transactions on Emerging Topics in Computational Intelligence. He has organized many international and national conferences, symposium, workshops as a general chair, organizing chair and coordinator, and delivered several talks as keynote, plenary, invited speakers in many international conferences and symposiums. He has organized several special sessions in top ranked conferences including WCCI, IJCNM, IEEE SNC, IEEE SSCI, and ICONIP. Amongst other distinguished international conference chairing role, he is the general chair for 29th ICONIP, a 29th International Conference on Neural Information Processing, which is a top-ranked conference, as we all know. And I'm also fortunate to be a part of that conference. Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Dr. Tanvir is currently the principal investigator or co-investigator of 20 research projects funded by Government of India. There are several agencies from where he has got fundings like DST, ACRB, CSIR, MHRD, Spark, ICMR, and so many. He is an IEEE CSI Distinguished Lecturer, elected Board of Governor of ASEAN Pacific Neural Network Society, and elected INSA Associated Faculty. He was recently honored with the prestigious INSA Distinguished Lecturer Award for 2024. So with this introduction, I now request you to kindly start the session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Deepak, for a very detailed introduction. And thank you so much to you and your organizing team for inviting me and giving me a chance to speak in this event. So I would like to speak essentially on advancing Alzheimer's disease diagnosis and role of shallow and deep learning algorithm. So my focus essentially how shallow and deep learning algorithm have been used, especially for the Alzheimer's disease. So I'll mostly focus on few algorithm based on shallow and deep learning algorithm, whatever our team has been developed from the last few years. So is it okay if I can off my camera to have better connectivity?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So then I can put my screen back now. I hope my screen is perfectly visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. So now I'll start with what exactly is Alzheimer's disease. So, and then we'll move slowly to the advanced level. Alzheimer's disease is one of the most I can say one of the neurodegenerative brain disorder disease, or one of the dementia, especially for the brain disorders. And in 1906, this name was after the German doctor called Alois Alzheimer. He was the first to diagnose this disease. So in the literature, what we see that it accounts for 60 to 80% of the dementia cases in Alzheimer. In Alzheimer disease, usually neuron die, break down in cell communication, and due to this, brain is shrink. And what we see in the literature that most of the time, when we came to know about the Alzheimer disease, the age of a person is beyond 65. I mean, as we came to know about this disease at the very late stage, when the Alzheimer disease at the last stage, so difficult to diagnose and difficult to go back. So, and what we see that in critical.
Sorry to disturb you, sir. Sir, your screen is not visible. It's kind of blurred.
Oh my God.
I think
My screen is not visible.
I mean, it's visible, but we cannot able to read the lines. I mean, basically, the slide is not properly visible. It is just like
My God. Is it okay?
No, sir. I think it is still. I mean,
So then what to do? Let me stop screening and
I can share it once.
can you see now my screen?
Better than previous.
So I don't know what to do.
I think the chat box participants are writing also the same thing. Yeah, I think it is better. Yeah, it's better, sir. It's
Is
better.
it?
Yeah.
It's perfectly visible now?
Yes. I think participants it is
Okay.
visible, right? Yeah, now clear, right? Everyone is writing. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
No. During a talk, online. Yes. Sure. So what we see that usually we came to know about Alzheimer disease at the age of 65 or after that, and at that stage it is at the advanced stage, and most of the cases patient die. So according to Dr. Deepak, is it okay now or I need to do something?
Maybe sir, is there any network issue or what? I don't know. Again,
I don't know. I have camera is off, so I'm expecting that connectivity should be better.
sir, again there is a little bit of blurring.
I don't know what to do. Please tell me what to do.
Sir, have you connected through? I mean, wireless. I mean, do you have any LAN connection also? I think you are using also.
Yeah, this. I'm connecting via my laptop.
Okay.
So usually I don't face any problem. So
Yes, sir. But I think now it is a little bit visible. But I don't know what is happening.
I can hear you properly. There is
Sir,
no
now
problem.
it is fine. Now it is fine. Now it is clearly visible. But sometimes I don't know. It is like on and off, on and off. It is.
Possibly we can check with the other audience. Are they able to see perfectly?
So you can check the chat box, sir. They cannot actually unmute their mic and speak. So you can just check the chat
Okay.
box.
Yeah, dear participants, please check. Okay, so one is saying, please share the PPT with the host. I can do that, but the problem is that I need to ask in every slide. Okay, go to the next slide, go to the back slide. So it is going to be unnecessary then.
Yes, 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 sir, absolutely. So you
Uh,
can just, I think, what you can do is can you just reshare it? I mean, just like
yeah, I
stop
can just
sharing.
reshare.
Mhm.
Is it okay now?
Uh, no, sir. I mean, have you shared, sir? If you're not able to visualize your screen, sir.
Dr. Deepak, it is okay
Yes, sir.
now?
Yes, sir. Little bit better, sir, but not exactly. Not clear. Even participants are also writing.
Uh, I
Mm,
don't know then what to do. So
probably there is some. Is there any internet issue, sir? I mean,
there is no issue at my place. So let me see if you can do like this.
yeah, now it is better, sir. Now you can read everything.
It is better.
Yes, yes, sir. Everyone is writing. That's fine. Yeah. It's better, sir. It's better. Right now,
So,
it's better, sir. But if you make, okay, sir. You can make it full screen. Now it is good, sir. Now it is good.
so can I proceed
Yes,
now?
sir. Please, sir. Please proceed. Yes.
Okay, okay. So I was discussing essentially about Alzheimer disease, and I was mentioning that this is one of the neurodegenerative disorder disease, and we know that this disease mostly common when the age of a person is beyond 65-year old, and in a critical stages, the patient die and it usually impact memory and brain cognitive function. According to the report in 2018, around 50 million people were affected by this disease, and it could be expected 3 times by 2050. So now early detection is very important so that I mean is because this disease cannot reverse. But if we came to know this disease at the early stage, so by the help of clinical people, by the help of doctors, the disease can stop at that stage. So early detection is very, very important. So these are a few symptoms of this disease. You can see in my screen that challenges in planning and or solving problems, confusing day from night, inappropriate use of words, mood changes, memory loss, gradual loss of ability to perform normal tasks, loss of vision and coordination, inability to recognize or use of familiar object. So if one see like 4 or 5 such kind of symptoms, so that needs really attention to look at to the next level. So these are usually the common symptoms, especially for a person having neurological disorder, especially Alzheimer. So now let me go and see more detailed about the brain. So if you look at the inside the human brain and we want to understand the Alzheimer disease, so in general, if you look at the weight of a brain, usually it is around 3 pounds. And if you look at the size of a person, so this is kind of cauliflower, and the number of neurons is more than 100 billions, and number of synapses is again is too much, and more than 100 trillions. So, and if you look at more information, like if we see that this part, cerebral hemisphere and So essentially, this is part when the information received from the outside, and this part of the brain it control voluntary movement and regulate conscious thought and mental activity. So it accounts for around 85% of the brain weight, and it consists of two hemispheres connected by the corpus. And if you look at cerebellum, so this is around 10% of the brain, of the whole brain, and it has also two hemispheres, and it receives information from the eyes, ear, and muscles and joints about the body's movement and position. So, if you look at the brain stem, this is another part inside the brain that it connects the spinal cord with the brain, that it relays and receive messages to and fro from the muscles, skin, and other organs, and it control automatic functions such as heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing. Uh, yeah, Dr. Deepak, please mute the mic. I think some voice is coming up.
Yeah, I think all are mute, sir.
Okay.
Any background sound, sir?
Yeah, some voice is coming. So now, if you look at the part of the brain, uh, some of you may know who has some background like hippocampus. You can see that this part, where here short-term memory are converted to the long-term memory, and this is another is this is thalamus. This part it receives sensory and limbic information and sent to the cerebral cortex, and then hypothalamus, limbic system. This is essentially control the emotions and behavior. Now, if you look the cells in the brain, so you can see that these two pictures, and you can see the brain has billions cells, billions neurons that carry messages between different part of the brain. And Alzheimer's disease causes damages to nerve cell, which stops them from working. And our brain control everything that we do. So if messages are not received, it means that it will lead to some difficulty. So now we can see that how this AD affect the brain. So you can see that here that we have the language and speech, this part, the green part, and this is also the temporal lobe that control the memory, learning, and understanding. And this is the frontal part that control thinking, planning, solving problems, and behavior. And this called parietal lobe that essentially control the awareness of our surrounding and coordination. And this is occipital lobe that help us interpret what we see. And this part is called cerebellum that control the balance and movement. So now we see that this is very clear picture of a healthy brain and Alzheimer's disease brain patients. So we can see that the left part and the right part. So the right part is essentially a brain that has an Alzheimer. So you can see that this brain has been shrink. Uh, due to this Alzheimer, and the left one is a healthy brain and the normal brain. And the same we can see in the right hand side figure. So we can see that here how cell is affected with a, in when a person has Alzheimer. Now, this is again this is very important point. This so how to diagnose Alzheimer's disease? Usually, The step one that we had to go for the neuropsychological assessment. Like we go for the CDR or EDUS and MMSE. So these are initial assessment test, and obviously all are non-invasive. And another most popular neuroimaging modality called MRI or PET scans. And then we can go for the blood test, and then we can go for the genetic data study. So Alzheimer's disease is only diagnosed with complete certainty after death using autopsy. So this is again, I mean, is we go with all these different kind of tests to check a person having Alzheimer. But if you go with 100% confirmation, that you usually we came to know using autopsy. So now let me discuss something related to some popular techniques, neuroimaging techniques like MRI. So neuroimaging has provided one of the best modern tool for examining the physiology of mental illness in the living brain, and this is one of the most significant milestones achieved in medical imaging. And Alzheimer's disease leads to structural changes in the cerebral cortex region of the brain, and MRI can visualize changes in characteristic location that can lead diagnostic accuracy. MRI can also represent structural changes from control normal to AD patients along with translational state like we have MCI. Nowadays, one more class has been added called early MCI. This is just before MCI, mild cognitive impairment. So as we know that MRI is one of the non-invasive modality if we compare to other imaging modalities, and this is another PET. This is somehow we say invasive modality because we need to just inject. So invasive modality represent metabolic changes that occur in the brain due to protein accumulation. So we can see these are just basic information of the MRI that we have the sagittal plane, coronal plane, and transverse plane. So this is just a 3D picture, and we can see the differences if we have AD with healthy and is control normal with mild cognitive impairment. So we can see the differences when the patient with AD and healthy. So we can see that especially the brain, the cell is damages and brain is shrink when a person is having a neurological disorder, either at the stage of MCI or at the advanced stage like AD. So this is just a visualization of the MRI that this part is frontal lobe, this is hippocampus, and this is cerebellum, and this is corpus callosum and thalamus, this part. So this is just we have considered sagittal plane, especially healthy patients. And this picture, this MRI we have taken from the ADNI database. And we can see that the middle slice of the control normal and healthy, and that is healthy and Alzheimer patients. So we can see the differences that this cerebral spinal fluid, that is CSF, especially for the control normal and especially for the AD patients. And we say the gray matter images and white matter images. Just see the structural changes in both the sides. So we see that it reduce the brain gray matter volume and increase the CSF volume and reduce the gray area and increase the stresses. So what is the importance of the early diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease? I already mentioned about it in the previous slide, that Alzheimer's disease is incurable. I mean, is that cannot go back. So the only option that the early diagnosis is very important that can help us in the proper care of the patients. And it is very tough to predict Alzheimer's disease as there is no defined set of symptoms of the disease. I mean is if a person is having memory loss, so memory loss has several problems. I mean, this could be due to Alzheimer, due to be some other reasons. So I mean, is there is no defined set of symptoms. So I mentioned that these are the set of symptoms. If you feel that you have 4 or 5 or 6 such kind of symptoms, then it is better to go and check for the further evaluation. So severity of Alzheimer's disease leads to death. So the only solution, early diagnosis. So and brain aging is yet another challenge to differentiate. Okay, how to go further? So we started with the neuroimaging techniques, which is more crucial in timely detection, diagnostic assessment, and therapeutic intervention of Alzheimer's disease. And neuroimage analysis traditionally involve human expert like clinical people, radiologists who take those MRI and PET scans. So since due to large volume, this process is time consuming as well as human biases. So due to this, doctors, researchers, they are come forward to come up and do work, especially for the deep learning and ensemble deep learning, to automatically find out the important features and interpret these neuroimages to improve the efficiency. So in the last few years, deep learning become a preferred tool for the neuroimage analysis to detect Alzheimer's disease in a timely manner. So how this research impacts the society? So one is the early detection and intervention. So again, that our research facilitate early detection or at least detection of Alzheimer, which is more crucial for the timely intervention. And second is the development of accurate Alzheimer detection model that contribute to making diagnostic tool more widely accessible, as it essentially facilitate timely medical attention and support for affected individual. And the third is by leveraging deep learning algorithm, we contribute to a deeper understanding of Alzheimer's. So it essentially both clinical applications as well as broader neurogenerative research. So this is just the basic what we know, what we should know about Alzheimer. So now I plan to discuss just a very basic algorithm. First, I'll start with about support vector machines, and then later on I'll discuss with the randomized Bayes algorithm and their deep variants, and how these algorithms have been used for the diagnosis, for the detection, classification of Alzheimer's disease. This is my intention for the next few slides. Okay, now to move forward, I'll just start with the support vector machine. Support vector machine is one of the most powerful tool for classification problem in supervised learning. Initially developed for classification problem, after a few, I think on the same year in 1995 by Wapnick and team. So they also developed the concept for the regression problems. And I think after a few years, it has been developed for the clustering problem. So nowadays, if you look at the literature, people are at least using support vector machine or advanced support vector machine for classification, for prediction, for clustering, and it has been applied, I think, almost all the possible directions. Either if you go with people background of engineering, or sciences or even humanities or medical doctors, all are at least using it. So let me go and discuss just some basics. I hope that will help. So as I mentioned that the idea of support vector machine is to find the best line to separate the data of both classes. I mean, as if we are talking about uh, um, an example of two class problem, a binary class problem. So we are essentially need to find out a line that can classify the data into two parts. So what will be the best line? So I mean is, so we need to find out uh, an optimal hyperplane or the best hyperplane in such a manner that the distance between positive and negative example is maximized, right? So how to do that? I mean is, let me give this example. We have two different kind of data points. Let me give very simple example. Okay, so what we do that we need to find out a line, that is middle one, in such a manner that the distance between these two class of data points is maximized. So essentially, we need to check that the data points which lie on this line and above this line, as well as the data point which lie on this line and below this. So such that this distance is maximized. So I mean is, we need to maximize 2 upon norm of W. So this is the distance between W dot X plus B equal to plus 1 and W dot X plus B equal to minus 1. So the distance with a simple formula, you can find out this is 2 upon norm of W, and we need to maximize this distance. So now, I mean is, I can give an example of a classroom. In a classroom, if boys and girls are sitting, boys are sitting on one side and girls are sitting on another side. Okay, and I want to uh, separate these boys with girls using support vector machine. So the best way will be that we need to divide boys and girls in such a manner that the distance between boys and girls is maximized, right? And uh, the boys, which is very close, okay, close towards girls and girls towards boys, so they are usually called this line called supporting hyperplane. I mean, okay, and this distance is called margin, and we can calculate this is coming out to be 2 upon norm of W. So we essentially need to maximize 2 upon norm of W subject to the condition. Condition is that W dot X plus B should be greater than or equal to 1. I mean is either data point lie on this line or above this. Similarly here, it will be W dot X plus B less than or equal to minus 1. Means data point which lie on this line and below this. So this is essentially the standard support vector machine formulation. Okay, means maximize 2 upon norm of W. We can equivalently write minimize norm of W by 2, or equivalently we can say minimize norm of W square by 2, subject to this condition. So now what happens if some of these data points are misclassified? I mean is, if these black data points lie on another side. So what we do, we penalize those data points. I mean is, in a classroom, if in a classroom that boys and girls are sitting on their side, if some of the boys are sitting with girls, so what we have to do using SVM, that we need to penalize them, and we need to ask them to go to their side, and we need to penalize with some like some xi, some slack variable. So you can see this formulation that we minimize, same as the previous idea, so completely hard margin. So we see that we need to minimize W plus we need to sum up all those misclassification and then minimize it. So we can sum up all those misclassification error and we have this parameter C. So parameter C is essentially that control the overfitting issues. Or in other words, we can say this parameter help us to maximize the margin and minimize the error. Okay. Now, how to solve this problem? So what we see that this is a very simple SVM problem and this is a quadratic programming problem and we want to solve it. So to solve this problem, the best idea is that we go and construct the Lagrangian function and take the partial order derivative, use KKT conditions and find out the dual. So we did that, we just construct the Lagrangian functions and solve it and finally we are getting this. Okay, I think if you are not good in maths, then please just see that this is our baseline algorithm and this is just dual algorithm. Okay, and we want to solve it. So this is very simple to solve that you just use QPP either in Python or MATLAB, wherever you want and just proceed with that. Okay. So now, what we observe, since this is so this is essentially for the case of linear SVM. So, and the data points appear in the dual formulation in the form of inner product or dot product. So, okay, this will help us and I'll come back and discuss this part this is very crucial, especially for the nonlinear case. So, let me give another very important idea in SVM. Like you see that we have the first example and what we see that we have the red data points and the blue data points and we want to classify it. So we see that the first example is nicely classified. There is no problem. I mean, it's, you see that in one side blue data, red data points and another side is blue data point. We just draw a line and can classify. So, but what happens with this second example? Are we able to classify this data linearly? No, we cannot classify. So, what we see that we have the same data point and but only change is that we map from the real line to plane. For example, we just map from Rn to Rm, I mean higher dimensional space. For this one is a very simple case. For example, you can take fx equal to x square and you just put the value of all these data points. So what we see that data points will move up, right? If you know the figure of fx equal to x square will be like that. Okay. So what we see that we can draw a line and we see that data points will classify. So this is just motivation to see that the same data point which were not linearly separable in the lower dimension, same data points can be classified linearly in the higher dimension. So this is essentially go in the kernel trick. That is another advantage. First we have seen in the maximize the margin concept. Okay. Now, so we can see here that in the left side we have this example which is more complex data points. We want to classify it. So we exactly go with the same idea. We transform this data point into some higher dimensional space with a map phi such that the data points will be linearly separable in some dimension. Right? Like, so now natural question is coming in our mind that what will be the nature of phi? Whether and how it will work. So that what we see that if I recall the previous linear case when we were solving the problem and finding out the dual problem, and we see that data points appear in the form of dot product, right? So since we are moving to the non-linear case, so to move to the non-linear case, so we map the linear input points to the high dimensional space such that the data is linearly separable. So what we see when we solve the problem, I'll show you that when the data is linear, non-linear, uh, let me just before moving that, so this phi, phi transpose phi, usually we say this is k, and k usually we say this is a kernel function, and there are many kernel functions available in the literature. So, and use of kernel functions to carry out phi, usually known as kernel trick. So now, this is a non-linear SVM formulation. The only difference with a linear case is that in place of xi, we just put phi of xi. Okay, and we are solving this problem exactly in the same manner as we were solving for the linear case. Okay, so we go again Lagrangian functions and then solve the problem, and we are getting this. Okay, and what we observe, data points appear in the dual formulation is in the form of phi transpose phi, and phi transpose phi is nothing but this is a inner product, so it is replaced by the k, and k is a kernel function, and there are many kernel functions available in the literature. So I mean is we are solving very highly complex data but working linearly. So this is the beauty of support vector machine. So the only issue here is that the complexity is very high in the case of SVM. So to overcome that issue in 2007, Reshma Khemchandani and her group, they developed an idea called the twin support vector machine for classification problems. So in such a manner that rather than solving a single hyperplane, they usually using two non-parallel hyperplane. So due to that, the spin support vector machine is approximately 4 times faster than SPM. So like we see that, I mean, rather than having a in parallel hyperplane, supporting hyperplane, let it be non-parallel. So let it be more flexible. So here data points which is very close to its own class and far from the other is belonging to one algorithm. And this is, so essentially what they're doing, so they are essentially distributing one large SVM problem into two smaller size of SVM problem. What is the advantage? That rather than solving a very large problem, we are distributed into two smaller size problem. So now computational time will be very less. If you look at computational complexity, training time, so this is around 4 times faster when the data is balanced.
Okay. And why this pop-up is always for semiconductor pop-up?
Okay. So now we just move ahead and see
in the same group. That's why
that we find out the dual formulation and we just proceed,
I don't think so.
and we can solve this problem like that. So you can see that W plus B plus W minus B minus, and we are getting this. So essentially the only problem between SVM is that while since the matrices appear here may not always invertible, so we have to add manually extra regularization term to make them invertible automatically.
sometimes
Okay.
Change the
Now, to move ahead, this is another formulation called least square minus PM. So this is extremely fast algorithm, and what they do, they just replace with the inequality with the equality, and one norm with the two norm of the slack variables. And we see that this is extremely fast algorithm, and we can move ahead like that.
Others के लिए नहीं है. Then we started sharing. It appeared like
So
this.
can you please mute your mic? So I think others may disrupt. Okay. So now to move ahead, let me discuss another very recent idea. We diagnose of Alzheimer's disease via intrinsic fuzzy least square minus VM. So we utilize intrinsic fuzzy score function to reduce the effect of noise and or outliers and address class imbalance problem. And we incorporate a regularization term so that help us with the structural risk minimization principle. And we propose two models here due to and high that leads essentially high computational efficiency. And when we apply on Alzheimer's disease and breast cancer, so what we see that we are getting better performance. You can see when we apply on Alzheimer's disease. So my focus here, Alzheimer. So you can see that there are several baseline, and you can see that the toughest classification is MCA versus AD, and you can say that it performed very well. So I mean, these algorithm is working very nicely. Usually, to classify NCI versus AD is a difficult case. Now, another idea is wave SVM for Alzheimer's disease diagnosis. So this is very important. So my student developed an idea of wave loss function. So what wave loss does, so our loss function is robust to outlier, noise, insensitive, and smoothness. So we used this wave loss function to develop a robust and smooth classifier called wave SVM. And then further we employ ADAM optimizer to solve wave SVM formulation that ensure scalability and efficient training for large medical data sets. So, and it has been numerically experimented on several this large data sets. So that shows strong applicability to real world Alzheimer's disease diagnosis. So one can see this wave loss function. So that can be represented here in equation 7. So here we have lambda is a bounding parameter, and here A is essentially the shape parameter that tells the shape of the loss functions. So further we see the mathematical formulations and the representation of this wave loss functions when we take the different value of lambda. So when we see that value of lambda is fixed, and we just change the value of lambda, and we see that wave loss function performing in this way. So now for theoretical contribution, we just check at classification calibrated probability. So I mean is that when we see that this function, which minimize the expected risk overall measurable functions, they also have the same sign as the bias classifier. So that we need to check when this is beyond p-value is 0.5 or p-value is less than 0.5. So you can see that when the value of the p is more than 0.5, so we can say that this minimized in the positive directions. When p is going to be less than 1.2, so the minimum value goes in the negative directions. So essentially this help us to validate with the bias theorem. And one can look at some results of Alzheimer's disease. So one can see this the average accuracy and average time. One can look at it that the proposed idea performing very well, but Linux SVM is fast. but this is comparatively, yes, comparable in time, not too much difference. If you are interested to work like Twin SVM and its applications, so I would like to suggest to please look at this review paper that can help you a lot. So several different algorithms have been developed. You can see that a lot of variants has been developed, and mostly you can see that apply for Alzheimer. So Alzheimer percentage is 27% in the literature. So, and you can see that other is EG signal classification, human activity recognition, and several others. So if you're interested to work in this direction, please look at this paper that is going to help. Now, this is our, I'm moving now towards the deep learning. So now, this is our recent work, especially kind of confluence between Alzheimer's disease and ensemble deep learning. They essentially we explain the fundamental of Alzheimer's disease and diagnostic standard and associated biomarker like MRI, PET, and functional MRI. Right, we examine how these modality, neuroimaging modality, have been modeled via ensemble deep learning to improve the predictions of Alzheimer's disease. Ultimate goal of this characterization is to establish a framework or established a guide for the researchers. So the reason is that this field is really growing for ensemble deep learning in Alzheimer's disease. It's very important to have some information. So our idea is to, especially to help clinical people, AI people to work especially in these directions that will help to detect the Alzheimer's disease in timely and provide more broad framework. So this is just the example that we see this the homogeneous ensemble, and this is the heterogeneous ensemble. I mean, is for homogeneous, like base model will be the same and base classifier will be same, but this is not the case for the heterogeneous case. Now, if you look at the possible directions ensemble deep learning for Alzheimer's disease, so we can see a number of possible directions. Like the first, I can say explainability, because we need, especially clinical people, would like to see the insight that how from the input to output how it is moving on. So and how this prediction is important. So, so now this is very important and timely, and people are started working on it. So, and developing a new architectures is again very important, especially for the Alzheimer's disease. And the region of interest, I mean, is to find out the relevant area of the brain and just check the statistical feature calculations, and then we need to go for the enhanced decision making. So, and multimodal data analysis, like effectively integrate data from multiple modalities. And we can also develop some algorithm that can reduce the computation efficiency. Now, this is a review paper recently done by our team, deep learning for Alzheimer's disease. So what we do here, we just give the brief introduction about neuroimaging modality for Alzheimer's disease, and we discuss the available data sets in the literature for AD diagnosis. And then we also introduce the concept of AD and discuss an advantage and disadvantages of different kind of algorithm for AD detections. So if you're interested, please look at IEEE CDS paper. So that will help you a lot. So now we can see the workflow, like as an input, we just take the MRI scan, we just go the pre-processing, like we have the trained data, validation, test data, and we just see the feature learning, and then we classify like MCI, healthy, or AD. Okay, now this is another very interesting work. Dr. Deepak, how much time I have now? So, because I think I can speak more, but I think due to limited time, maybe either you can stop in another 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Please tell me.
हाँ वेंगला मणिकुमार मेरे पेपर में आया ही नहीं था वो पता है
I think Dr. Deepak is not here, so let me just at least discuss this part and then we'll see in case he is here. So now, this is very important, called significant memory concern. So this is called, in short, SMC. So this is usually known as subjective cognitive decline. It usually refers to self-perceived decline in the memory or cognitive abilities. So it occurs without objective impairment on standardized cognitive assessment. SMC is typically reported by individual or recognized by close associate. So, how it is important in Alzheimer's disease, this SMC may represent the earliest symptomatic stages of the Alzheimer's disease. It has a potential preclinical marker of future cognitive decline, including MRI and dementia. Early detection of SMC enables timely monitoring, intervention, and risk assessment, and it also supports targeted recruitment for clinical trials and improve predictions for Alzheimer's disease progression. So we see that the framework here that we go with the pre-processing, like we just take the structural MRI scans from ADNI data sets, whatever available with us. We just go with the different toolboxes with pre-processing, and we just find out this segmentation into ROI like gray matter, white matters, or KD, and then we go with the feature engineering, different just we extract the features, and then we go with the classification. And there could be, so in this case, we used hyperplane based classifier like SVM based or randomized neural network based. So, and then we just classify whether a person is healthy or SMC. So for more information, please look at this paper, Wires, Data Mining and Knowledge Discovery. It accepted recently in this journal. So now we see that these are the top 5 features for gray matter, white matter, JT, and control. And the CT modality identify from sharply from the top of our model. Okay. So now let me, I think I can skip this part and yeah. Let me go with another deep variant. So this is RVFL based work. So here we developed the novel deep RVFL with privilege information. What does it mean, privilege information? So privilege information is the additional information about the distribution of data. I mean is a teacher teaches in the classroom and explaining an idea, and he's giving some additional information about that particular method, particular results. So those additional information that help the student to understand, so that is essentially called privilege information. So now we developed using this privilege informations. So we just use in this manner that higher layer of the model utilize the original information as well as non-linearity projected features in the lower layer to train this network. I mean is like we see that this is the input, and since there are multiple hidden layers, and now we have the hidden privilege informations. So and then we just predict whether and the output whether this is goes to C1, C2, Cn. Now if we go with the ensemble deep, so it means that there are multiple just hidden layers, and then we have the privilege informations and this the several stacks, and then we go with the outputs.
But presentation.
And here we can see that we again focused Alzheimer, and we see MCI versus AD case, and we see that as comparison with the baseline like RVFL, deep RVFL, AD RVFL, the baseline which is using privilege information is performing usually better. So for more information, please look at this IEEE TCBB paper. So, and we see that there are still limitations in deep learning algorithm that lead to drawing some other conclusion. So let me see a future possible directions here, like significant brain region extraction. And this is very important, brain age difference with cognitive decline. I'll discuss possibly in the next few slides. And integration of multimodality and developing and some deep learning architectures, adversarial perturbation and uncertainty estimation, identify neural biomarkers. Okay, so this is a very important work. We have done systematic review, especially for brain age estimation. So we categorize brain age estimation based on deep learning, and we classify deep learning architecture based on sliced or voxel-based input data, and we examine modality, size of data, performance, and data set used. We enumerate several challenges and directions that can be explored further. One can look at our framework that we usually go with this framework that we go either classification on regression problems, and our focus is brain age estimation. So, and there are several possible directions here, like more explainability in deep learning for brain age estimation, integration of multimodal data, like if we go with a particular direction, so there could be more large data is not available, so multimodal could be the best choice. And deep learning, obviously, architectures is very important, and brain age differences, computation complexity is significant brain region extraction. Okay, so and how to enhance healthcare through mutual support. So one thing as a conclusion that data access and data annotation, and we should have our Indian-based data, and we have the clinical insight and validation and domain knowledge exchange via some seminar or hands-on session like this is going on. So that will really help us a lot. And how this model interpret and explainable. So one can look at these three recent work published in top journal like IEEE JBHI, IEEE JBHI, and engineering application of AI. So let me thank to my student and collaborators, which has really helped me to improve my capabilities. And some portion of this presentation is spared by the preparation prepared by Rahul, was my postdoc student. And so thank you so much for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions now.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful and informative session. Participants, now you can ask if you have any queries. So they will write their queries in the chat box. You can check the chat box there.
Okay.
So any query from the participant side?
So especially for images, yeah, there are two options. I mean, is if you are working on deep learning directly, so then you can take as an input MRI images, right? And once you take this in as an input, MRI or PET scan, whatever, so then in the deep learning, the feature engineering will work and it will automatically give the important features. Okay. Now, if we don't go with directly as a input MRI or PET, so what we usually do, we transform this and convert into the matrix. So when we have the matrix, when we have the data in matrix form, so then we usually go in a traditional way. Yeah, slide can be shared. There is no problem.
In this one, so we'll do it.
Yeah, any question other than this?
You want to speak?
Sir, I think there is one more question.
Hmm.
Can you suggest some data set source of ALS disease?
Oh, no, I need to check it. Or you may please check any review paper where all the details are available, especially for Alzheimer, especially for the brain age data, especially for the Parkinson. We already have written the review paper and all the information of available database are available. Please check it, our paper, but we are not work on ALS. So for this, my suggestion, please look at any recent review paper on it. You will get all those information. Yeah, agree. Yeah, obviously, don't think about this hyperplane. So I was discussing about support vector machine and its variant. So we were talking about hyperplane based algorithm. Okay. So don't confuse with both.
Yeah, I think sir, no further, no other questions. Sir.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you very much, sir, once again, sir, for your
So,
it was very informative and helpful for us. And I think participants could not able to see few slides, I mean, because of some issues. So, yes, sir.
so possibly one can look at my email ID in case of any doubt, you want to discuss anything, so drop me an email.
Yes, participants, you can, just you can just drop an email to sir if you are having any doubt.
Okay,
Sir,
so thank you so much again to all the participants and the organizer for uh, everything.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
So can I disconnect the call
Yes,
now?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you.
Uh, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, participants, we'll start the next session.